So let's be honest, video editing may take a good amount of time when creating a video, all the way from the planning process to the actual editing itself. So here are some tips that will help you speed things along when editing on Shotcut or any other video editing software. Starting off with the first one, it's a pretty big one, and it's organization. This will include your import selection of clips, your timeline, and basically making sure you plan accordingly before you're starting your project. So when importing your clips to Shotcut, there's actually two ways to do it. One is actually using the file button in Shotcut itself, but this is way much more slower because you have to do it one by one. I just recommend to open your documents folder and just put it aside and keep dragging all the clips you're going to be needing. This will help you pick and drag all the clips that you want and all at the same time, which is faster and easier to do. But remember, the easiest way to have a clean playlist when you're importing files is by naming your files accordingly. I said this before, but when I'm importing some of my files, such as my audio files, I always put a number right behind them, so when they appear on the playlist, all the files will be in order and I know which ones I've been using and which ones I have been not. And you can do this for any types of recordings, either if you have footage like B-roll, A-roll, or even audio footage that you're using. Naming these and putting them in order, such as by using numbers or letters, however you want to organize your footage, is really important, and it saves a lot of time when you're looking for all your footage, which can be found all in one folder, and when you're importing it on Shotcut or any other video editing program. They'll all appear nice, neat, and in order, which will help you save time. Now, this might be one of the most important, if not the most important factor when it comes to organization, which is keeping your timeline clean and organized. I've seen so many timelines that are messy and all the things are not arranged properly. Now, when it comes to my personal organization tips, when keeping your timeline clean is having a purpose for each of the timeline and have it color coded. Now, I know that Shotcut may not have that color code option, but there are many other video editing programs out there that does. Usually in any other video editing program that I use, I always have the same format when organizing my timeline. This will help me keep everything clean, everything in order, and if I catch a mistake in a video, I know exactly where to go. So the breakdown happens like this. I open different video and audio tracks depending on the multiple elements that I'm adding to my video. So the very first video track that I usually open is mainly for overlays or graphics that I'm going to be adding to my video. From there, I open a second video track right beneath that, and that will be an additional supporting footage track. So if I have to cut away from a different scene and add supporting video footage like B-roll, I'll do that. But then underneath that track, I will have my main video editing track where the most of the video is going to take place. This will include the intro, outro, and the main piece of what you see in any video. From there, I move down to the audio tracks. So my first audio track usually depends on the sound effects of the videos that I'm going to be using. Usually I'll have 2 to 3 audio tracks, one for sound effects, one for my main audio recordings that I use with these videos. Lastly, the background music audio track that I use for every single one of my videos. So I separate every track with its own purpose, and usually I color code them depending on what kind of video editing software I am using. Now, not all video editing programs are the same. You can take this basic premise and transform it something to your own so you can have a better and organized timeline when you're editing. Tip number 2. Now, this might sound obvious, but it's more common than you think. Saving your project. Just save your project from the very beginning as soon as you open your video file. Saving your project can help you so much in the long run, especially when you're editing and your computer crashes and you lose all your work. That's happened to me, and that's happened to a lot of people who have edited videos before. So save your project as soon as you open your video editing software and you start your first project. Now, it's kind of mandatory for Shotcut. If you're using Shotcut, you know that screen where it tells you to save your project and name it. So name your project according to the video that you're making, save it somewhere you know where it's going to be exactly, and you can start editing. One feature that I always use, but you can't really rely on, is the autosave feature. Now, with many video editing programs, I know some of them have these autosave features, but they're not always reliable. Sometimes when I'm editing a video on my own video editing program, it tends to crash, and when I rely on the autosave feature, it won't save the most recent work that I've made. So even if you're working on a big portion of your video and the autosave portion did not save that part of your project, you will have to redo it again. But I really suggest that you guys save your project file as soon as you open it. Tip number 3. Now, I thought this was going to be a little bit more obvious, but I know that some people have problems when they export their video and the video quality is not what they expect it to be. And this simply is, set your settings appropriately. So before setting your settings for your video project, always make sure to check the properties of your video and audio quality footage and match those exact same settings to your video project for better results to avoid any quality problems at the end. You can do this by clicking on the video file or audio file, right click and go to properties, and you can see the exact settings and resolutions and quality overall of that video footage, and you can match that when you're opening Shotcut or any other video editing program. Now in Shotcut, this is basically mandatory as it always gives you that screen of naming your project, saving it, and set the settings that you want to use. So in all, this will help you avoid any quality issues. This also includes exporting as well, and there are many presets out there, and the ones I recommend is the H.264 preset in Shotcut, and leave everything else default, or if you know what settings you want to use under this preset, then you can change them according to your video resolution and what you have seen to best work for you. The other option would be using the YouTube preset in Shotcut. This basically applies the general settings of a YouTube video as well as the quality of the video when YouTube actually compresses that video when you're uploading it. So by using the YouTube preset, this will basically give you the exact same settings that your video will need when you're uploading to YouTube. So any of these presets will work, but if you know what you're doing and you want to change these settings up a little bit, you can do so. But in Shotcut, I found that these two presets work really well. So moving on to the next one, and that's simply just save your presets. We know that Shotcut and other video editing programs have so many effects and filters that you guys can apply to your videos just to spice things up a little bit, but it gets pretty time consuming every time you're trying to make that same effect or same filter that you want to apply to it. So I would just recommend saving that preset for each effect that you're doing. For example, if I'm going to add a blur to my video, I just go to the blur filters or blur effects and just pick the amount of blur and save it as my preset. This will save me a lot of time and hassle in the future whenever I just want to apply that same effect over and over again. But I would just recommend this with effects that you know that you want to use and that you know you'll be using later down in the line when you're making your videos. So this way you will reduce the amount of time of creating each effect by saving these custom presets down in your video editing program. So having presets for all the effects that you know you're going to be using will help you save a lot of time when editing. One last point that I want to make, and this does not only apply to Shotcut but to any other video editing programs and to you guys, which is don't be afraid to use third-party tools. There are many tools and many graphics that you guys can use that are available out there, such as having intros, outros, or even graphic designs or even lower thirds in your videos. I know a lot of people think that using third-party or custom templates that people actually provide for free either on Google or even on YouTube channels just dedicated on making templates for you guys to use for free is a really good resource to use. Maybe you guys don't have enough time to learn a new skill like motion graphics or even graphic design. That's totally okay. You guys can use these free resources and take advantage of them and apply them to your video so you can make your video a little bit more interesting by applying your own intro, outro, or lower thirds. And later down in the line, when you do decide to invest a little bit more time, you can learn motion graphics and make your own custom lower thirds, intros, outros, or overall graphics for your videos. But at the time, these resources are out there for you guys. So don't be afraid of using third-party resources out there that are made for you guys to use. So I know I use Shotcut as the basis for these tips, but to be honest, you can use these tips regardless of what video editing program you're using. The important thing is to know how to apply them in order to make your efficiency a little bit more faster and better when editing videos. Now with that said, if you guys are still looking for more tips or even tutorials on Shotcut specifically, well, I have a playlist that you guys can check out that I think will help you with that. But in terms of video editing, I got so many other videos for you guys as well. So I hope these tips and tricks help you guys to maximize your efficiency when editing. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys got any more suggestions or ideas or even questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. But that's pretty much it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you on the next one.